Hey, welcome back everybody to another episode of RabbitWerks Live Coding. Tonight is episode 15 of the Tasker app series, and we are going to be getting some media queries together and getting some styles together for our completed tasks and whatnot. And so let's take a look at our to-do list. So basically we got couple different things: edit details and style for completed if on time or late. So this section right here, we're gonna probably try and do like a green or a red tint, get some stuff going for this counter store that we have set up, and media queries to make it responsive, make it look nice on mobile, and depending on what time we have, we'll say delete step to SVG. So we're going to turn this X right here into an SVG like these guys are. And then I don't know, these are just some other optional stuff that possibly do in the future, but we'll see what happens. So cool, we got a good list of stuff to tackle tonight, and let's get started. Thanks for tuning in to RabbitWerks Live Coding, and music is brought to you by Free Code Camp Radio. Link is in the description. Go check them out. All right, let's get started. So one thing we got to get going in this is, so I said edit details here, and we have this button right here, but it doesn't currently do anything. It kind of overlooked that while we were setting up this component, and what I want to be able to do is just be able to click that, and we can edit the contact info and the due date. So we'll probably do something similar to, like, when we click it, it'll change from these little display boxes to kind of how when we double click on our inputs here, it changes to an input view. So we'll do kind of the same similar situation with that, edit details, and then we can click save. This will change to save, and so it'll kind of be like a toggle editable mode, and when it's editable, these won't be displays, they'll be inputs. And then when we click the edit details, which will be save details at that point, it'll just save it and go back to the displays and the edit details wording down here. Cool. Let's get it started on that and see how it goes. So let's take a look. This is going to be in task list, task details, task additional details component, right here. Okay, so let's look at our component a little closer. So what do we have right here? Okay, we have a header, that's our additional details, and then we have our first input and our second input. Well, not input, but display. We got the contact info and the due date. So cool. So what we want to get set up is a data field, data property, and then we also want to get set up a couple methods. So since we're passing in the value for this information with props, we'll update the parent element and the parent component, and we're going to use a custom event to do it. Cool. Okay, so data, which is a function that returns an object with our data in it. So we could say Oh, actually, we don't not even need a data property because we're just passing it out of this anyways. But let's just see. New due date, and that is gonna be just string for now. And new contact info, and that'll also be a string. Okay, so underneath that we're going to set up our methods object just to have that rolling. And the other thing we want to put in here is we want to have a Boolean value, or Boolean property. So we're going to say is, or we can actually just say edit mode, because that's going to be false by default, and we'll just toggle that back and forth. Oops. And so what we'll do is when we click this button, we want to send that click to this component. And if we look, let's close that and let's pull up our details component. If we look at that, we're passing in these two things right there. And let's see, so let's find our buttons really quick. Okay, so in the parent component, the task list, manage buttons. Oh, that's right. We have our buttons in its own component now. So let's look at that. And okay, so we have delete task, and right here, the second button is our edit details. And so what we want to do for this is start here by initiating an event. Edit details, let's just see. Okay, so we'll just say edit details, and down here in our methods, we'll write that function now. Edit details, and cool. So edit details. So what we want to do is we just want to say event bus dot on. Oop, it's gotta be. It's at actually it's not event bus on. It's event bus $emit, and we're gonna emit a custom event called edit details. We'll just put CE in there for reference to a custom event. Alright, so we don't need to pass any information in since we're just getting the event from the button click. So we have that set up, and let's just console log and see if we get that. Okay, cool. Got it running, and we will go with that back into our additional details. And so we have methods right here, and we'll say before we enter in the methods, we gotta listen for our custom event we just created. So when this component gets initially created, we want to start listening for that custom event. So we will say in the created lifecycle, we're gonna say event bus dot $on, and this one is the edit details custom event. Alright, so on that, we're just gonna have a function that runs when that custom event gets listened to. And what we're gonna say okay, so what we'll say is this dot edit mode equals true. Alright, and then so that'll set our edit mode to true. And let's see, so what we'll do after that is once it's set to true, oh, it's trying to auto import the event bus in the template. But we do need to import it in our script tag, so import inside the single curly braces event bus from main.js. Okay, we have that in there now, and then so let's see if we can get this to look to trigger in our dev tools. Okay. Task list. Okay, right here is our edit mode property, and let's see if we can get that to change. So if we click edit details, it doesn't reflect it in there, but let's see. Console.log this dot edit mode. Manage buttons, edit details, running this. Oh, because we have the CE in there to reference a custom event. Alright, so if we're listening to the right event, we should have it update now. True. And let's see. Looks like it's true in there. Refresh it. Look at it again, it's false, click it, and it says it's updated to true. Go back in here. Okay, so it does. Cool. Alright, so alright, so one thing we want to keep track of is the edit mode state in this component too, because we just want to change the wording of this button. So we'll say Okay, so we're basically going to do kind of the same thing as have a Boolean value and say editing details, and that'll be false to start. And what we want to do when we have this is this span of text right here. We're actually gonna say we're gonna put 2 elements in here, 2 spans, and we're gonna conditionally show them based on what this value renders to be. So one's gonna say edit mode or edit details, the other one will say save details when we're editing them. And how we'll do that is basically just like this. So we'll say span, and inside here we'll say edit details. We want one more, so span, and we'll say save details. Okay, save edits. And then in the span tag, we'll use the v-if directive, and like the v-show, it'll show it based on the truthiness of an evaluation, but the v-if completely takes it off the DOM, so that's what we'll use in this case. We could probably use either or, but I'm just going to do it like this so it only has one element on there and it's not just doing display none on a second element in the same spot. And so we'll just say editing details. And we'll say if not editing details, and then so that's going to say it'll show if we're not editing the details, the edit details button. And then the v-if directives, we have v-if, v-else if, and then v-else, kind of like a for loop, or not a for loop, but an if statement. So we'll just say v-else, and that's all we have to do for that. And because it automatically will render based on the immediately previous v-if statement and like the markup. So you see that's right here. This one automatically links up with this one because it's a v-else, and it looks for the next or the first occurrence of the v-if kind of deal. So I don't know. Anyways, so when we click that, we want to set editing details to true, and it's not just editing details, it's this dot editing details. And cool, so let's see now, if we click this it should change the wording. Save edits. Cool, we got the first part done. And what do we have for an error? I think that's just the rendering errors. Refresh, nothing's going on, everything's hunky-dory. Excellent, that's what we like to see here at RabbitWerks JavaScript. Okay, so we have part 1 done. I think this is kind of like a 3-part process in this case. So we have the first part, which we're triggering the edit details functionality. Now, in this additional details component, we're going to kind of do something similar to what we just did with the button, and something similar to what we're doing with these. And that's just going to be switching them based on the truthiness of a Boolean value, switching them between the display and an input that we can edit the information with. And then we'll v-model with these 2 properties here with the displaying edit inputs. So There's a lot of stuff here, but it's just a bunch of class names. So what we will say is, let's see, this div right here is what we're gonna want to render conditionally. Okay, so let's start by putting in we can just do a bootstrap, so we'll just do a div. Oh, not dot div, so we'll just say form group. Or actually, you know what, we don't even need to put it in a form group. We are going to do just the input. So input, and that's going to be text, and the name, we don't need a name, we don't need an ID. Okay, let's see. What we do need okay, so we have our text right there. We need, okay, sorry, I'm getting just caught up in this. Input, and we need the class of form control. Oh, control. And that should give us the, not from control, form control. That'll give us the bootstrap form. And then we want to do the same thing for this div as well. Underneath that, we'll put a date picker. Input type equals date. Don't need a name, don't need an ID. We do need a class of form control, which is the bootstrap class to make it look nice. And well, we have that set up now, so you can kind of see what I'm getting going here. And basically what we want to say now is, let's set up our V models. So V model equals new contact info, and let's just make this a little bit easier to read. And we'll do the same thing for the date picker. Okay. Sorry, just checking out these awesome tunes playing. Every time I come across one that I like, I'll take a note of it. Autumn Breeze by Jasane and Nymano. I don't know. Free Code Camp Radio, go check them out. They always got the best lo-fi concentration beats. Super chill. Okay, so we got our input right here, and we want to set up our V model equals new due date, and we should probably correct that so it's correct and not spelled wrong. New due date. All right, excellent. Now what we want to do is start conditionally displaying these two different inputs, and we will say I'm just gonna build this out just a little bit, make it a little bit easier to read, hopefully. There's so many classes on this one. Same with this, ton of classes. That's to get the, we're basically taking an alert bootstrap component and turning it into this kind of like getting it this light blue color and turning it into a display box. Okay, so we got that, and now above the class we'll put in our vShow, and we're gonna use vShow this time just to kind of demonstrate the difference between it. And with the vShow, we want, it keeps the components on the DOM. It just hides their display by setting the CSS property to none. And we want that because at the moment I'm gonna set it like that because we have data on here that will get cleared out each time this renders. If it's attached to the DOM, it gets destroyed and the data gets destroyed with it. So with vShow, we're just hiding it. We're not detaching it from the DOM like the other instance of the wording down here. And it might not make, we could probably do it either way in this instance as well, but just trying to demonstrate the different ways to do it. And in the future, it might be easier for us to just have the vShow so we don't have to worry about losing our data if we need it down the road. Okay, long story short, it'll just make it look toggle back and forth between the div and the input. vShow, and we're gonna say, what is the name of it? Edit mode. So if not edit mode, and then we will say for this one, I'm just gonna move up these. Trying to get a convention down so there's like a rhyme and reason to how I structure these things. Probably just trying to keep the view specific stuff on the top and then have like the traditional or the typical HTML attribute stuff after. But it's kind of all over the place. I'm just trying to figure out what works best and just trying to stick with something and stick with the format and kind of go with it. And input here, what are we doing? vShow equals edit mode. So if we click this button, it should toggle to that input. And cool, and it's set up to target our information, or to target our data property for contact info. Let's look, and there it is in there, the goop, and cool. Let's do the same thing for the date now, and we can just build this out just similarly to what I did before. Just because there's so many classes, we'll just kind of break it out a little bit. Okay, there we go. And one thing I did start liking to do is having, when we have it looking like this, and we have like just one little thing that's actually being rendered as far as HTML, everything else is just classes and JavaScript stuff, then I like to have this little closing caret symbol, angle bracket, closing angle bracket for whatever the last attribute is before what we're displaying, right before it on that line, to kind of symbolize, like point to it, like this is what we're showing. And so something I just kind of have started to do in the last day and a half or so that I found that really worked for me. So obviously it's not everywhere, but so for instance, I can show right here, what I'm talking about. So we'll just have the closing angle bracket right there pointing to the wording that we're displaying, and that just kind of symbolizes to me what it is when we have a bunch of stuff like scaffolded, built out super tall like this. So just a personal convention that I've started to do. If you like it, give it a shot yourself, see what it works for you. It doesn't really matter, whatever works. But okay, so we got that, and then what else? Okay, so we got this scaffolded out just slightly now, and let's just go ahead and put in our view directive. So vshow equals not edit mode, and same thing with the input as above. We'll say vshow equals edit mode, and just to double check that this works, we'll give it a refresh and hit the edit details button, and both of our inputs change from that to that. But okay, so what we want to do is set the value though. So we want to say so what I'm talking about is for the contact info specifically, so we have this NA right here. When we click it, we want that whatever is in there as text to populate in the contact field, because we want to edit it. We don't just want a blank input. So I think we can just it's probably going to give us an error saying that we can't use bind to value with a vModel directive. Oh, this is the wrong one. We want to go to the input, and we will just say value, and it's going to yell at us and say we can't do it. Contact. Okay, so contact. Yeah, so saying binding to value with the contact conflicts with the vModel on the same element because the latter already expands to a value binding internally. Okay, so we can't do that, but we'll just say that. I think, let's see. No, not that. We'll say value equals, how do we just do this? I wonder, can we just do a placeholder instead of the value? We'll say bind to placeholder, not capital placeholder, but placeholder, and we'll say contact. So if we click that, okay, so it has it in there, but I kind of want to just have it actual letters. Let's see if we can do. Oh, no, not that. Pushing wrong buttons here. Let's just say contact. Just flying blind at the moment. So it gives us an error because it says we don't want to edit a prop directly. So instead of an empty string, can we just pass in the value of the prop? Data is not defined, is defined. New contact info. Alright, that's given us an error too. Okay, there we go. So we got to say this dot contact because it is on the Vue instance. So that makes sense. We have to target it through this keyword. So let's see if when we do that, so we can edit it. Or it populates properly like we want it to, but is it adjusting the data property after the fact, after that, when we type in new information? Let's see, contact info, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so it is updating. Cool, so we'll do that and we'll set the same thing for this. This dot do. And then, so type date, edit mode, view model. We're gonna move this up to above it, and the little caret symbol is gonna have to go back down here. Close off the HTML tag. I don't think, actually we don't need this anymore, I don't believe. The placeholder attribute on the first input. Let's see, let's just give this a refresh, edit, and that's actual text. Cool, and then we want to say new due date, new due date. I don't know if we can pass in that, populate that data in there like that. So yeah, that's fine. I don't, let's see. Edit mode, new due date, new contact info. Let's just take a look and see what happens when we adjust it. So let's just refresh it and task additional details right here. If we edit this and click that, it's gonna say that. So we'll want to format it. Again, it's the way we've been formatting the dates on submission. Alright, so we have that global function set up to do that in this. Let's see. Task list. Function format date. Additional details. Okay, so let's look at this really quick. So this additional details component, we click edit details and we want to adjust our information because we have Steve is our new contact, and we have an additional month to get this done. And it's not January, it's November. That's just a little squished. So there we go. Cool. And cool. So this completes part 2 of this whole process to get these updating. And look in the additional details. We have our updated information. Console saying does not specified value, does not conform to the required format. Okay, so if we want to get the right thing populated in there, we have to format it to this format that it wants. So let's see. Okay, so let's just write a function really quick. And while we're at it, I want to see if I can target that other function from the other component. And we're gonna just say, if I can remember what it's called. Function format date. I don't know if we can target it like that. We might have to do it in the main JS. Let's see. Format date. Format date is not defined, so it looks like we can't do that. I think that's what the mix-ins are for. So if we set up a mix-in for this function, we can use that globally. So let's make a note of that for our work log, and we'll just say set up mix-in for format date function. All right. So we're gonna need to borrow this function for the time being, and we'll just put it in the additional details right here. Oops. There we go. Shift tab, formatted date, and then we want another function that's basically takes our date like this and turns it into the year, month, day value that it's looking for. So we'll say function let's see. Let's see. This doesn't tell me anything. I need to look at. There's a lot of long-winded answers on this. It's not really what I'm looking for either, so let's just see. Change format for date picker, and we'll just say date, and then so we'll say const new date equals alright, new date const year equals new date dot let's see, which one is this? Set minutes, no, get seconds, get minutes, get year, maybe. Get full year. And then const. What did it say that it wanted the format for? What is this yelling at us for? Oh. Okay, so edit details and I want to see that warning that it was showing before, so I know what is it saying. Okay, so let's just say const month equals const month equals new date dot what is this? Get month using local time. Alright, let's just see what this is giving us. Console.log. Date, year, and month. Let's just see what we got. No. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just playing around with this date picker thing, trying to figure out, kind of getting stuck on a tangent here, but I just want to see what's going on, and if this isn't it, I'll just look it up off session and just do it really quick, because this isn't the important part. Date object is super tricky in JavaScript, so I'll just say this dot do. Okay, edit, and what does it give us? Cool. And then const day equals new date dot not day of the week, get day of the month, get date, okay, and then day. Refresh, click that button, gives us that, and let's see, so if we return year plus month, well, let's actually just do template string. We'll say year and put some dashes in there, maybe that'll work for the formatting. Month, and last but not least, day. Let's just console log that too so we can see what we're doing. And edit details gives us that string. Cool. So now can we generate this date when we click that button based on this function now? And we'll say let's just drop this in here like that, see if that works. Does it give us an error? No. What about if we trigger it? Nope, it doesn't. What is, okay, let's see. What is that doing to our data though? So, additional details. 9/22/18. I wonder why it's pulling up. October 22nd, and it gives us 9. Oh, that's so frustrating. Let's try this. Wrap that in parentheses, and we'll just not delete it, but we'll just say +1. Is that gonna work? It's kind of hacky at this point, but that's alright. So okay, so we have the right thing in there. So I think it must be pulling the index off of an array of months or something like that to get the day or the number of the month. Alright, so we have that going now, and that's accurate. And let's see, so let's just bind to the placeholder this dot now new due date and edit details, and it's not there, dang it. Let's see, placeholder, I don't know if placeholder exists on a date. Value. Here's that error again. Let's see. month, day. Specified value does not conform to the required format. Okay. Interesting. Alright, let's see if we can throw that in there now like this. Okay, cool, it's in there. Sweet, we did it. Excellent. And then we can edit it on the current day that it was set. Sweet. And then, okay, so part 2 is finished. We have these two functions right here. This one we could keep in here, but this format date, we definitely want to do some sort of like global mix-in with that, because we want to be able to use that in a couple different spots. And instead of rewriting the function in different components, we can have a mix-in to have it be able to use it across multiple components. Alright, cool. So let's get started on part 3. But before we do that, I'm going to take a quick break and get some water, stretch, and, you know, recharge, whatnot. So stick around for part 2, or after the break, we'll be back with more RabbitWerks JavaScript live coding with Vue.js, and we're going to finish up part 3 of the additional details editing functionality, and we still have all this other stuff that we have a laundry list to do. So we'll see what other stuff we can get done. I'd like to get the media queries done tonight too, at least just to get some really basic ones down so we have some good styling and start looking at it on devices and it'll look nice. But definitely get this details part, edit details part done. It's kind of a little more advanced or a little more involved than I initially thought it was going to be, but that's because we're using multiple different components and it's a 3-part process. Cool. Alright, I will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the music. RabbitWerks JavaScript taking a break. Alright, and we are back from break. Thank you for your patience, and we're going to pick up where we left off. We're working on this additional details component tonight, and we're editing the details of our task. So there's 3 parts to this process. We have the first 2 parts done, and we're going to get the 3rd part done now. The first part was transitioning this stuff to editable stuff. I'm sorry, stuff is a bad word, so basically what happens is we click this edit details button right here, and that emits a custom event setting the edit details to true, and emits a custom event to the additional details component, which we're listening for on the created lifecycle hook. And when we hit that, it runs a function that sets the edit mode on this component to true, and it just formats the date that is passed in there from our data. So okay, cool, we have that, and this is what it looks like. It goes like that, and we have our information that's populated and our date that's populated. So the last step in this, step 3, is going to be to commit that data to our task, essentially. Commit the new data to our data or whatever. So check this out. So we're gonna go let's see, click that, we have our stuff right here, and now so in our manage buttons component, we want to listen for a new event so maybe we can just say, you know what, we're just showing the span right here, and I think what we're gonna do instead of just doing that is we're gonna toggle between 2 different buttons that are styled the same. So because that way, I feel like if we try to do 2 different click listeners and like check on a condition, it's gonna be a little bit convoluted. So instead of trying to do 2 things with 1 button, we're gonna just do 1 thing with 2 buttons and have them do their own thing. Okay, so what are we gonna do for that? We're gonna say first, we don't need we don't need this span. We'll get rid of this span. And we don't need this v-if anymore. And we will need that. So we're just going to cut it from this span, and we're going to put it on the button element itself. The v-if, and we're going to bring this up here so the view directives are on top. And we don't need the span anymore, since it's just going to be sitting in the button. Okay, so we have the same button still, and now we'll just duplicate the button. And in VS Code, you can hold Alt Shift and then hit either up or down on the arrow keys when you have something highlighted, and it'll just duplicate it up or down. So okay, we have that, and let's just say this is our second button, so we're just gonna say save edits, kind of like how we had it on the span. And this one will be if we are editing the details, so if the editing details property, if that's true. Okay, so it disappeared, and we don't want to run this function when it's clicked anymore, so the event click handler, we're going to say not edit details, but we will say save details, or we can say save edits just to keep it concise. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. So this one is the edit details. We want to do the save edits on the second button here. So maybe we can just say editing with 2 T's. Okay, and then we will say above this one, we'll just put that in there. Oh. Just so I can tell later which one is which quicker, not editing, editing. Is not editing, and is editing. Cool. Alright, so let's see. What's the next thing we want to do? We got this button now, and we have save edits method that we need to now write. So underneath our edit details, we're going to write the save edits method, and for that, don't forget the comma. What do we want to do? So we got to pass this another event to. So basically we're going to do the opposite of this right here. Is we're going to set editing details to false again, and then we're going to emit a custom event. And when we emit that custom event, we're going to listen for it on this additional details component. And when we hear it and we listen for it and it's triggered, we will send our newly populated data to our task list, essentially, when we save it. So sorry about that, excuse me. Alright, so what we want to say in here is we're going to listen for that new event that we first need to emit. So in our manage buttons component, we're going to say this dot edit mode, or editing details equals false, and then we will say event bus dot $emit, and we're gonna emit save edits CE, and we have to make sure we wrap that in quotes because it's not a variable, it's a string. And like this one, we're not passing any data with it, so we don't need any second parameters. We just need the name of the event that we're firing. So, alright, in our additional details component, we can say in this same created lifecycle hook, we can set up another statement here and say event bus dot $on, and it's going to listen for save edits CE. Again, we need to make sure that that's written or wrapped in quotes because it's a string. And so this is going to be where it gets interesting, because we're going to have to do sort of like a nested event, nested custom events. And okay, so with this event bus save edits CE, we need to run a function when we listen for that, or when it's heard, essentially. And in there we want to run an event, another custom event that we're going to listen for to update let's see, so this is getting passed in, oops, right here as props. So let's look at the task details component, and we're passing them in right here, and we're getting them passed in through from the task, the main parent component, the task list. And so we can see that right here. So this is what we're going to want to listen for that custom event on, and we have a lot of stuff on here, but that's all right. So we'll just do it in this mounted lifecycle hook with what everything else we're doing. Save. Should probably just comment this so I know what it does. Let's see. This dot task archive task index. Sending it. Okay, so we're sending the completed task to completed task component. And update local storage. Okay. Cool. So we're gonna have to make a note right here for update additional details. Receiving custom event, receiving. And okay, cool. So we have this guy right here. Back in our additional details component, we have the event bus that we're listening for the custom event save edits custom event on, or save edit CE, and we're running a function when we listen for that. Or when that event is fired. And when that happens, what we want to do is run, we're going to say, hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we have this function that we are firing off when this event is listened for. I know I've said that like 15 times now, but okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna emit another custom event when we hear this save edits CE custom event, or CE. And so we'll say event bus dot emit, and we will say in that update additional details, no update update new details. And so okay, so this one we are going to want to pass our data in with it, so we will say let's just set up we want to pass it in like this. We can just do new contact info and new due date. Okay, so 2 parameters, or an object containing 2 variables, which are our properties on our data or our data object in this component. And so we have that event emitting now. And let's just see if this is firing properly. So we'll say nested CE custom event. Alright, so if we click that, save, and we have this new button, and we click save edits, it should fire off that event and say what we wrote. Uh-oh. Oh, we gotta make sure we pass in with this thing. Okay, so here what we're gonna do, instead of doing this, we will say new details. We're just gonna initialize a variable here and set it to an object equals. And we'll say contact. It's going to be set to this dot new contact. No, not contact. This dot new contact info, and we'll say do is set to. Let's actually, we're going to say new and new do, just to be a little bit more verbose, explicit. So new do is going to be equal to this dot new due date, and I think that's all we're going to need to pass in. So we'll just, for the second parameter now in our custom event, we will just pass in new details like this. Cool. And let's see if that functions now properly. Cool. Yeah. It's interesting that Vue will console log stuff multiple times unless you refresh when you're doing multiple updates and stuff. And okay, we don't need that custom event or console log. So inside of this custom event, we're passing in this new event, or we're emitting this new event and passing in the new details with that event. So the final part of this is to pull it all together on our main task list component and update the data on there. And we want to say event bus dot on, and we're listening for the update new details. Is that what we called it? Update new details, yep. And in this, we're gonna have our new details, and it's gonna be an arrow function, or a function that we get our data that we're passing through with this custom event, and we will set our respective data to the proper task. And I think we're gonna have to use some indexing and whatnot. Let's just say yeah, we're gonna need to send the task ID along with our details. We're gonna have to pass it down as a prop to our additional details component, and then we're gonna have to send that index with this new details data set that we created when we emit the update new details component. So our task list knows which entry of the array to update. Okay, so let's just do that in here as well. Okay, so we're passing in the ID, and let's look at our task details, because that's the next level down, an ID. So if we look at the task additional details, we're just passing the do and the contact data fields in there, and we want to pass the ID into it now as well. So we'll just say equals underscore ID equals that. So same thing, it's the respective selves. So we pass that ID down to that component now, and we should just see it in there now. If we look at the Vue dev tools, additional details, let's see if we refresh it. Oh, you know what? We need to set it up as a prop in our component too. Silly. So we have it in our task details sent in now, but we also need to register that prop on our Vue instance. So we'll just say before everything else, we'll just say underscore ID, and so we're passing. We're setting up a prop for that now as well. And let's see. So now we have that, and let's just see if that's accurate. So let's just add a new task really quick. And if we look at that in the Vue dev tools, let's see. Task list, which one is it? Where's our new task? I wonder. Weird. Let's see. Let's take a look at local storage. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Is that? Nope, that's not the right thing. Oh, that's what I'm looking at. I'm getting confused. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see if we have details. Okay, so we have the ID in there. Okay, excellent. That's fine. That's fine. That's all fine and dandy. Okay. think we're gonna want to throw these buttons into the details container, maybe, because I don't know if we want the buttons there or not. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so let's just get rid of that really quick. And so where are we at now? So we have the ID in our additional details component, but we also need to pass that up now with our custom events. So let's go in here to this object that we created, and we'll just say, and that is going to be equal to this dot underscore ID and a comma. Okay, so let's see if we pass this and hit save. Oops, okay. Okay, all the way down here. So let's just console log our new details just to see what we got and save edit. Okay, we have the ID, contact, and the new due date. And cool. So we'll say this dot task, not contact, task list, and then we're going to pass in the index. Alright, so we're going to pass in the index, or I'm sorry, not the index, but the ID of the task that we're updating. And then we want to say dot details dot contact and that's going to be set to new details dot new contact. Wait a second, what did we call that? New contact info, new contact. Yeah. New details dot new contact. Oh, it's not just ID. We got to pass in new details dot ID because we need to get the index from this data that we're getting. Okay, so let's see if that works just as it is for the time being. Edit and save. Alright, no errors. Cool. What if we go like this and say change my name? So we have change my name, and did that update our task information? Let's look at the dev tools, details, contact, change my name. So it did, yeah, okay, that's right, because let's look in here. Our main task component has all of our data in it, and if we look at the details, it should say contact change my name. Cool. Perfect. So let's see. Alright, so we're updating the name. Let's update the update the due date now. So new details dot underscore ID to get the ID of the task we want to update, and then we're going to update the details and then the due property on the details. And it's going to be set to new details dot new due. I think that's what we called it. Yeah. All right, cool. We have that now. So what we want to do at this point is we want to set edit mode to false. We're updating our information on the task list component, which has all of our data on it. And what we want to do is set the edit mode to false now and change this back. Or actually, we're already changing that back. So we just need to set these back to the display boxes that we had before. And we'll just do that by changing the edit mode on the additional details component to false. And so we can say, after everything, we'll just say this dot edit mode equals false. And that should goof up our date now. It saves it though. So another thing we want to do while we go through this is on this, we're gonna say not that it's just equal to this new date, but we're gonna new due date, but we're gonna say that it's equal to the function format date, because we want to format it, and we're just going to pass in the new details dot new due. And that should give us the right formatting that we want. So if we edit that and change it to November 27th and save edits, or 26th, we get the right date there, I believe. I don't know. Let's see if we change that to the 23rd, save edits. Oh, weird. I think that is a bug again, kind of like this thing. So get date. If we pick the first day of the month, is that going to give us a 0? Oh, it gives us the last day. Weird. Okay, let's just, I think, what if we pick, I'm not going to worry about it. Let's just wrap this in parentheses and +1 it, because, yeah. Waste not, want not, and edit details. Let's just see what this does now. Save details. I wonder why it's going down. Let's try and refresh it. Maybe not. Edit details. Weird. Let's see. Edit details, and we save it and it goes back. Why is it? I wonder if it's... I don't understand why this is giving me the wrong date. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see, maybe that's what I'm doing wrong, not accessing the values properly. Let's see if I just say no, I'm still doing that thing. So it says it's right there, 1022, and edit says 1022, and then we save it and it goes back. Interesting. Alright, well, I'll figure out that bug at some point, and let's see. So I'm going to make a note of the work of that. Debug date object minus day thing. And, okay. But long story short, we got what we wanted to get done. So we got that, and it's transferring back, and once we get that little bug fixed, then it'll be good to go. But if we go Steve as our contact info, we save, and it's saved. And let's just, I think if we refresh this, that'll go back. So we need to update local storage now as well. So let's do that. And task list, and down here at the very bottom. Now when we're done running this whole thing, we're just gonna say this dot save to local storage, just to update everything. And so if we edit the details and change the name to Steve again and save edits, and now if we refresh, Steve is now our contact information. Cool. So work log, let's just say that that's a-okay for the time being. And I think what I want to do is get these media queries set up for mainly just specifically for the grid. So that way when we get down to mobile size, it doesn't get just like super squished up like that. It's gonna stack. So let's take a look at, is it this? We can close out these components. Stop with that, and okay, so let's look at our task list. I think we're gonna look at the component that has the grid markup on it and the styling. So looks like That's going to be the task details. And let's see. So we have an attempt a while ago at trying to do some dynamic styling versus via the screen width and whatnot, and that wasn't working, but that's all good. So we'll just do regular CSS media queries in this, and what we can say is at media screen. So media screen and the keyword, and in this parentheses we'll say max width is, we'll just start by saying 480 pixels. Okay, so we want basically we're going to take this styling right here and move it up into the media queries and just gonna adapt it, because this is basically what we want, but just not the right syntax. So let's unhighlight it or uncomment it, and we don't need that anymore because that's what we're doing. Oops. Right now. And okay, so let's look at this. So we have details. We don't need the mobile on there. I'm just gonna say details is display grid 1 FR 1 FR. Or yeah, just 1 FR because we want them to stack. And right now we have it set up for 3 fractionals and 2 fractionals, 3 parts and 2 parts, and we just wanted to take up 1 fractional. So each component is going to take up 1 full size. Okay, so now if we just put this in refresh mode and then responsive mode, let's see if that triggers it for us. Nope, and I think, let's see. I'm just gonna put this at the bottom just to see. There we go. Cascading style sheets. From top to bottom. Okay, so we have our media queries at the bottom anyways. That's usually what you want to do. Oops. And I'm just going to put a little comment in here that says media queries, just because it's not like I can't tell that enough from this little syntax right here. That's alright. So that's kind of cool. We have the button sitting there, and we have the little, everything's pretty much looks really nice as it is. Edit the details, save them, and we can collapse it. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna show those. So we might have to go through if we put these buttons in inside the task details component. We might have to just refactor a little bit, so all the work we did tonight, but that's all right. So let's see, what else do we want to look at? This thing right here is what we want to do a media query on as well. And let's take a look at the steps. We can adjust this a little bit, so maybe have the step be above a label and not like right here, but this is using Flexbox, so maybe we can just put these 2 items, or so the step 1 label and the action items on one line, and then the input on this line below it to kind of give it some more room. So we'll have to readjust this a little bit. So let's get these two things fixed really quick, so we're gonna do the same thing. So let's look at the additional details. And okay, additional details, and let's add some media queries. So add media, and max width, and that's going to be set to 480 pixels. And in here we want to do, let's see, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't the right component, I'm getting confused. We don't want this in here, we want this in the add task component. So cool. Underneath everything, we'll put that media query in there like that, and we can just say, we look at the grid right here. Basically we have it already written for us because we were doing it already. Cut that out, we can put it in there. We were trying to do it with dynamic styling, but it just was not trying to work very well. So we got this now, and delete that, delete all that, all the comments, tab that out. We can delete the -- mobile, and that gives us already what we want. And let's see, let's look at the padding on this and the space between this stuff, the grid gap. We don't want that big of a grid gap. Let's do a grid gap of 0. Not on that one. We need to go to our media query, and we'll just say 0 rem, and that'll kind of give it a little bit closer together. And add task step, add step. Okay, cool. So we got that looking nice now, and we'll have to adjust the header. And let's actually do that right now. So task details app is where it's at, and let's just give this an ID. That is ID equals app title. Alright, cool. And again, I'm doing that closing caret and then content rule deal. And cool. So let's say, let's target this now. I can, let's just, I don't know, app title, because I might, I guess if this was its own component, it would be called app-title anyways. So let's just take that and go with it for the time being. Down here on our styles, we can target it. So we'll just target it right underneath the app styles. And now we want to say, actually, you know what? Let us before we do that, let's take a look at HTML. Let's write a media query to drop that down. So we're gonna make a media query to basically target the sizes of or just we're gonna change the size of the font. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. And so at same thing, max width, and it's gonna be 480. And cool, so inside there we can say HTML and font size is going to be, let's just try 10 pixels and see what happens here. Oh, it's really small. 14. $18. What about 16? Okay. Yeah, I think that's a little more, I don't know. We'll have to see what it looks like on an actual mobile device when we're doing some more testing and whatnot. But for the time being, we'll just keep that like that. And what I want to do is also just say app-title, and I'm going to change the font size of that is just, let's see. And then we can just say text align center on this guy. So it's just there. I wonder if I just say with 100%. And no, well, no, I don't want to do that actually because it's already at 100%, but I do want that text align center. We'll just say 2.5. Let's try 3. What if we just take the RabbitWerks part out? No, can't take the RabbitWerks part out. Alright, well, let's see. Let's just do...
Here we go. We in business now.
Something like that, and maybe just do the left align part. And I don't know, I'm just playing around at this point with some stuff. Alright, okay. And we'll probably put a nav bar up here instead of this thing, but I'm just gonna just put this stuff on here for now. Just to kind of style it up a little bit better. And okay, so we got that, and it shows us that all thing. What about this guy? Okay, so that's something we'll have to work a little bit on as well. Okay, so cool. And let's see. Alright, cool. Alright, well, I think that's gonna do it for this evening. I got some good styling done. I didn't realize that editing the details was gonna take so long to get worked out, but it just ended up being pretty intricate the way we went about it. So there's a couple things I gotta get done. Look up some mix-in stuff and debug date object, the -day thing. Look into that and maybe we can debug it together. Got some media queries set up for the most part, and I'm just gonna write in that we need to fix add step styling on that, and also completed task styling. Alright, cool. And we also need to do that for it, and that. So we got the edit details part done, and that was pretty big, and then some good media queries, so that way everything looks mobile friendly now. We're getting closer to things being a full-fledged app, so cool. Alright, well, I'm gonna push the code up to GitHub, and you can go and take a look at it. It'll redeploy on Netlify as soon as I commit the code to GitHub, and you can go check it out. Thank you so much for tuning in to another live stream session with RabbitWerks JavaScript. And yeah, so just before we get going, I just want to look at one more thing. Okay. Okay, so yeah, basically what we're going to focus on next time is we're going to get these things styled a little bit nicer, and then we're going to fix this. We're going to get this changed so it's coloring it a little bit dynamically, and get the rest of the stuff finished that we didn't get done tonight done as well. Alright, cool. So that's going to do it for this evening's live coding session. Thank you so much for tuning in to RabbitWerks JavaScript live coding. You've been very awesome, and just wanted to say thank you for taking time out of your night to come and check out my stuff. So thank you, and thank you Free Code Camp Radio for the awesome tunes. Feel free to check out my Instagram at RabbitWerks.js, and you can check me out on Twitter at RabbitWerksJS without the dot. Check out my GitHub, check out all the latest stuff coming out, and we get some stuff going on soon. And shouts to the Moon Tory for being in here saying yo. I didn't see his comment, but shouts to him, and cool. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. You've been with RabbitWerks JavaScript, and this is Sean signing out. Take care.